My name is Chloe, and today I turned 24, working a 12-hour shift as a charge nurse on the pediatric floor of Presbyterian Dallas Medical Center is not how I envisioned celebrating my birthday. But there I was, drowning in charting and parent consultations, trying to keep the chaos controlled, when the worst birthday text of my life decided to light up my phone screen. It was from my dad, Arthur. It read, "We sold your car. Family comes first. Be grateful we let you live here rent-free. That Honda's value is now Liam's tuition." My blood went cold. The hospital sounds, the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the squeak of running shoes, the distant, muffled cries faded. That car, my used, slightly dinged, but utterly reliable Honda Civic, every single penny of it paid for by me, scraped together from night shifts and overtime, proof that I could actually own something separate from the Sanders household. A second text followed almost immediately, hitting me like a physical punch. Liam starts Texas A&M Commerce next month. $6,300 due this week. Be a good sister and transfer it tonight. My heart wasn't just sinking, it was shattering. They had taken things before. Small thefts wrapped up in the gilded paper of familial obligation. But this was different. This was blatant, audacious, and frankly criminal. This time, I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, the dynamic was going to change. I just didn't know yet how catastrophic that change would be for all of us. To understand why this was the breaking point, you have to understand the dynamic of the Sanders family. Growing up in our suburban Dallas home meant adhering to one immutable law: hierarchy. My father, Arthur, was the dictator. He ruled with an iron fist, convinced of his own moral and financial supremacy. My mother, Elaine, was his loyal enabler, following his lead without question, always ready with a tearful deflection when the conversation got too real. And then there was my younger brother, Liam. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Liam's room was a shrine to consumerism. The latest PS5 sneaker walls, brand new golf clubs for the expensive sports he dabbed in. His hobbies, his sports equipment, even his first car at 16, a flashy used Mustang, of course, were fully funded by my parents. My reality? Well, I started babysitting at 16. By 18, Arthur declared I was no longer allowed to freeload. That's when the rent payments began. I was still a high school senior, but $625 every month went straight into Arthur's pocket. Did I see any household improvements? No. Did I even get a thank you? Never. That money just vanished into the black hole of family expenses, which usually meant supplementing Liam's lifestyle. The taking wasn't limited to monthly payments. When I won a small $1,800 community college scholarship, Elaine insisted I hand it over. "We provide the roof, Chloe. That's your contribution." When my wonderful grandmother, Edith, bless her soul, left me her antique pearl necklace, it mysteriously migrated to Elaine's neck for the next church function. "Family shares," she'd coo, touching the pearls dismissively when I asked about them. But I was stubborn. I worked double shifts, I took classes between babysitting gigs, I completed clinical rotations on weekends. I earned my RN license and got hired immediately. The hospital became my refuge, a place where my merit was recognized. Last month, I got promoted to charge nurse on the pediatric floor. My colleagues threw me a little party, cupcakes, cards, and a stethoscope charm from my friend, Skylar. That small, genuine pride meant more than anything I'd ever gotten at home. The Honda, the one Arthur just unilaterally decided to liquidate, was the physical manifestation of that professional success. I had saved for 2 years. I researched reliable models. I negotiated the price myself, entirely cash in hand. The day I drove it home, I remember Arthur looking it over with thinly veiled contempt. Could have gotten you a better deal if you'd asked your old man. But I didn't care. The keys in my hand were proof of something he couldn't control or claim. In recent weeks, the tension had been building like a poorly maintained dam. Liam's college acceptance letters arrived, causing my parents to practically vibrate with self-congratulation. "Your brother is going places," Arthur would proclaim at dinner, the unspoken comparison hanging heavy in the air, reminding me that I had chosen Collin College and a hands-on career, which, in his eyes, was a failure to launch. Last Sunday, they announced Liam had chosen Texas A&M Commerce, a prestigious, expensive business program. No one, of course, discussed how the tuition would be funded. I was told repeatedly how fortunate I was to still be allowed to live at home despite my full-time job. Elaine was always quick with, "Most parents would charge much more, Chloe." I knew the housing market was brutal, but I was meticulously saving for a security deposit and 6 months of rent, a safety cushion that was now entirely threatened by this latest demand. They didn't see me as an independent professional. They saw me as an extension of their bank account, a utility they could tap whenever the golden child required funding. The car sale, the immediate demand for $6,300 for Liam. It wasn't just a request. It was an orchestrated betrayal, perfectly timed for my birthday. They were counting on my history of acquiescence, my pattern of putting family harmony above my own self-worth. They figured I'd never cause a scene on my own birthday. They figure wrong. The pediatric ward was buzzing with the usual controlled chaos as I processed the news. Around noon, Skylar snuck me a cupcake with a single candle, whispering, "Happy birthday, warrior. Make a wish." That small, genuine act of kindness was the contrast I needed. By 2 p.m., when my phone vibrated with those texts, the lingering sting of the unacknowledged birthday dissolved, replaced by a cold, searing wave of realization. They didn't just forget my birthday. They were actively plotting to use it as the perfect moment for the ultimate heist. I quickly checked my calendar. Liam's $6,300 tuition was due in 3 days. The car, worth about $14,500, was already gone. They hadn't just used my money, they had sold my independence. I retreated to the supply closet and called my father, straight to voicemail. I tried my mother, Elaine. She answered, her voice saccharine, too bright. "Chloe, I'm busy right now." I could hear Liam laughing in the background. "Mom, what is Dad talking about? You can't sell my car. The title is in my name." A pause. A sigh. "Your father handled all that. We needed the money for, well, family expenses. And since you live here for practically nothing, it seemed fair. You can just take the bus, honey. Lots of people do." "That's theft, Mom. You can't legally sell something that isn't yours." "Don't be dramatic," she clipped. "Your father put his name on the title months ago when he took it in for an inspection. You signed the paperwork, remember?" I hung up without another word. The time for pot roast and passive aggression was over. I was finally ready to refuse the script they had written for me. I spent the remaining 6 hours of my shift functioning on pure adrenaline and muscle memory. The beeping monitors, the charting, the nervous first-time parents. I handled it all with the practiced calm of an ER nurse during a major incident. But beneath the professional veneer, my mind was a high-speed calculator, running scenarios and tallying losses. The $6,300 tuition demand. The $14,500 car gone. All of it represented the savings I'd meticulously built for one single goal: escape. The down payment and 6 months of security rent for my own place in Plano. The dream I'd been working toward since I was a teenager. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd stolen my timeline, my security, and my meticulously planned future. As the clock ticked toward 7 p.m., I received 3 more texts from Arthur, each one more demanding, each one dripping with passive aggression. Your mother is stressed about this. Don't make things difficult. Family obligations come before personal wants. We raised you better than this. We need the tuition check by Friday. Don't ruin Liam's future. The complete lack of remorse was the final seal on the deal. They saw me as a means to an end, an ATM wrapped in scrubs. I canceled dinner with Skylar, Brenda, and Veronica, sending a cryptic text. Family situation exploded. Major crisis. Rescheduling the celebration ASAP. Need to handle this now. I felt a pang of guilt sacrificing my birthday fun, but the irony, yet another personal milestone sacrificed for Sanders' Family Drama Incorporated, fueled my determination. This wasn't a sacrifice. It was an investment in my sanity. Stepping out of the bright, air-conditioned hospital into the humid Dallas evening, I automatically walked toward the employee parking lot, then stopped. My Honda was gone. The empty space felt physically cold, a gaping hole representing the $14,500 they had simply decided was theirs. I walked to the bus stop. The bus ride home took 45 agonizing minutes, 3 times longer than my usual 15-minute drive. Each stop, each jolt of the suspension, each blast of cold, recycled air, gave me more time to solidify my resolve. I pulled out my phone, ignoring the fresh string of furious texts from Arthur, and opened my banking app. I changed every single password, updated the security questions, and removed the ability for anyone to remotely access my accounts, which they'd done once before under the guise of helping me set up autopay. The whole time, I was compiling a mental inventory. The years of rent, the groceries I bought every week, the time Arthur's credit card was maxed, and I paid the $950 minimum to keep the service running, which he never paid back. Every little moment, carefully compartmentalized under the banner of family love or duty, now stood exposed as a financial transaction where I was the perpetual loser. I realized I had spent the last 8 years living under a subtle, corrosive form of financial abuse. It wasn't always obvious. Sometimes it was a suggestion. Liam needs this more than you do. Sometimes it was a manipulation. We'd be so disappointed if you didn't help. And sometimes, like today, it was outright theft. As the bus turned onto Memorial Drive, heading toward our quiet, middle-class neighborhood, my stomach tightened, but not from fear. It was the feeling you get right before a high-stakes moment, the clarity of knowing exactly what needs to be done. When the bus finally lumbered to a stop 2 blocks from my house, I caught the first telltale sign of the night's tone, the smell. It wasn't the fresh scent of the evening air. It was pot roast, Arthur and Elaine's favorite weapon. Pot roast wasn't just dinner. It was the culinary backdrop for every major family crisis or demanding conversation. It was comfort food designed to soften the blow of a financial requisition. A delicious, meaty distraction meant to say, see, we're a normal, loving family, so just go along with the plan. I walked up the front path, the keys to a non-existent car weighing heavily in my pocket. I pushed open the front door, and the comforting aroma of slow-cooked beef and rosemary hit me full force. There she is! Arthur's booming voice called from the recliner in the living room. He didn't look up from the 24-hour news channel. Birthday girl, finally home. Dinner's almost ready. Elaine emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a pristine apron. Her smile was too wide, her eyes too bright. The kitchen island was set not with our usual chipped stoneware, but with the good dishes, the wedding china that only came out for Thanksgiving, Christmas, or an impending confrontation designed to extract maximum emotional compliance. "We're celebrating your birthday, honey," Elaine chirped, gesturing vaguely towards the dining room, where the table was set for four, complete with my grandmother's heirloom silver, the same silver that mysteriously reappeared every time Elaine wanted to remind me how blessed I was to be a Sanders. "It's your favorite, pot roast and chocolate cake. Come sit down." I paused in the hallway. I didn't drop my work bag. I didn't move toward the table. I just stood there, the weight of the last 8 years pressing down on my shoulders, and spoke in a voice that was calm, quiet, and dangerously steady. "Where is my car, Arthur?" He finally turned, slow and deliberate, a practiced look of injured paternal authority plastered across his face. He even took off his reading glasses and tucked them into his shirt pocket, a signature move indicating he was about to drop some hard parental truth. "Sold it this morning," he said, his voice challenging a low, guttural growl that had always shut me down before. "Cash offer. Good timing, too, with Liam's tuition coming due. You know you had no right." I cut him off, my voice rising slightly but still controlled. "You had no right," I repeated, locking eyes with him. "That was my property. My name was on the title." Elaine stepped in, her hands fluttering like nervous birds. "Chloe, darling, please. Let's not start the evening with arguments. I made your favorite dessert." My favorite dessert. Chocolate cake couldn't fix fraud. I was finally ready to refuse the script they had written for me. The tension in the dining room was so thick, I could have cut it with one of my grandmother's heirloom butter knives. "Come sit down, Chloe," Elaine insisted, her hands now clasped tightly in front of her apron. "We're a family. We eat together, we talk together. Let's enjoy your birthday dinner, and then we can discuss this reasonable request." I didn't move. I kept my gaze fixed on Arthur, who was now settling back into his recliner, crossing one ankle over the other, attempting to project bored superiority. "There's nothing to discuss," I stated. My voice was low, but every word felt like a perfectly weighted stone dropping into the silence. "You committed theft and fraud by selling property that belonged solely to me. I will not be writing a check for $6,300 or any other amount." Just then, Liam bounded down the stairs. He came straight up to me, punched my arm lightly, and gave me a condescending smirk. "Hey, tuition fairy," he joked, pulling his headphones down around his neck. "Dad says you're covering the first semester. Awesome timing, since I just ordered that new, top-of-the-line MacBook Pro for the business program. You're the best, sis." The casual entitlement in his voice, the nickname that reduced my entire existence to a source of funding for him, made something snap inside me. Arthur straightened up, sensing the shift. He tried to steer the conversation back to the pot roast path to compliance. "All right, Chloe, let's sit down. Dinner is getting cold. It's time you put the family first." I set my purse down carefully on the hardwood floor. "Arthur, Elaine, listen to me," I said, using their first names for the first time in years. "I am not paying Liam's tuition. I'm not giving you $6,300, and you had no legal right to sell my car." Arthur's face remained conversational, but I saw the telltale sign of his temper, the way the knuckles around the glass of iced tea on the counter whitened. "What do you mean you're not paying? You live here rent-free. We've given you everything." Elaine immediately burst into tears, her go-to weapon when cornered. "Why are you doing this to us, Chloe? To your brother? We've given you a home, support through nursing school, family meals every night." "I paid for nursing school myself," I corrected, my voice sharp and clear. "I paid $625 a month in rent. Plus, I paid for groceries, I covered utilities, and I coordinated all the household repairs. That's hardly free. And that car was mine until Arthur committed fraud by adding his name without my knowledge." Arthur's practiced mask finally slipped. He slammed his iced tea glass down and shouted, "You ungrateful little brat! After everything we've done, what you pay is nothing. Then perhaps it's time you found out what apartments cost." Liam stammered, "Wait, so you're not paying my tuition? Dad said it was all arranged." I turned to my brother, my face utterly devoid of expression. "No, Liam, you'll need to apply for student loans, just like almost every other college student in the country." Elaine's sobs ratcheted up a notch. "This is ridiculous. Your brother deserves an education. Family supports family." "Funny how that support only flows in one direction," I replied. "When I needed help with nursing prerequisites, I worked double shifts. Where was family support then?" Arthur rose slowly to his full height. He went in for the kill. "You have two options, Chloe," he spat. "You write the check for your brother's tuition by Friday, or you find somewhere else to live. If you walk out that door without agreeing to help, you are dead to me. No daughter of mine would be so selfish." The threat that had worked for 24 years finally fell flat. That silence, the one that followed Arthur's declaration that I would be dead to him, was the loudest moment of my life. It was the sound of a generational chain breaking. I looked at Arthur's contorted, red face, at Elaine's collapsed form, and at Liam, confused. I finally understood the truth. Their love was entirely conditional. "I'll have my things out by morning," I said quietly, the simple words carrying the weight of a monumental decision. Elaine gasped, "You can't be serious. Chloe, where will you go? What will you do?" "I'll figure it out," I replied, turning toward the hallway. "I always have." Liam, still caught in the loop of family manipulation, scoffed. "She's bluffing, Mom. She always caves. Remember when Dad took her graduation money for the deck repair? She'll be back before morning." I stopped in the middle of the hallway. "Not this time," I said without turning around. "Happy birthday to me." Arthur's furious voice followed me all the way to my bedroom door. "You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. Chloe, after everything we've done for you." I slammed the door. The wave of panic receded, replaced by something entirely new, profound relief. I pulled out my phone and returned Skylar's call. "Skylar, I need a huge favor. The car is gone. I just told Arthur I'm leaving tonight. Could I crash at your place? Just for a few nights." "Of course. Guest room is all yours, no time limit." "Do you need me to come get you?" she replied instantly. Next, I called Brenda, who immediately texted me the number for the manager at Willow Creek Apartments. "Tell them I'll pay the deposit and first month's rent sight unseen if it means I can sign the lease tomorrow." With a temporary safe harbor secured, I began the grim task of inventorying my life. What could I take? I started with the non-negotiables: my legal existence, my birth certificate, social security card, and passport hidden inside my old college textbook. My nursing degrees and certifications went into a protective folder. As I packed, memories of previous financial manipulations surfaced. each one twisting the knife a little deeper. The $1,200 bonus check Arthur claimed to repay an imaginary loan. The $400 Aunt Margaret gift Elaine took for safekeeping. I moved to my desk. I needed the title of the Honda. I was no longer Chloe the daughter. I was Chloe the prosecutor. The moment the bedroom door clicked shut behind me, the immediate panic of the confrontation dissipated, replaced by a cold, surgical focus. The house downstairs was silent now, save for the muffled sounds of Arthur pacing and Elaine's ragged, dramatic sobs. They were expecting me to crack. They were expecting the silence to break my will. I sat on my bed, pulled out my phone, and returned Skylar's call. She was a godsend. No judgment, just immediate practical help. I'm taking the guest room, Skylar. Thank you. Just for a couple of days while I sort out a place. Next was Brenda. That one bedroom at Willow Creek? I need the manager's number. Tell them I'll pay the deposit and first month's rent sight unseen if it means I can sign the lease tomorrow. Brenda, bless her heart, simply said, "You got it, warrior. I'll text you the details right now." With a temporary safe harbor secured, I began the grim task of inventorying my life. What could I take? What was replaceable? What was worth risking a confrontation for? I started with the non-negotiables, my legal existence. I pulled my old college textbook, Pediatric Nursing Essentials, off the shelf. Inside the hollowed-out spine were my birth certificate, social security card, and passport. They had always been hidden there, not from robbers, but from them. My nursing degrees and certifications went into a protective plastic folder. Alongside the stethoscope my clinical instructor had gifted me upon graduation, a tangible symbol of the career they had always dismissed. As I packed clothing and toiletries into a suitcase, memories of previous financial manipulation surfaced, each one twisting the knife a little deeper. The time I earned a bonus check for covering Christmas Eve at the hospital, $200, which Arthur immediately claimed to repay an imaginary loan he insisted I owed him for my high school days. The $400 Aunt Margaret had given me for Christmas 2 years ago, which Elaine had kept for safekeeping and never returned. It wasn't about the money. It was about the control, the constant reminder that nothing I earned was truly mine. I moved to my desk, the hub of my financial independence. I was searching for the title of the Honda. I needed to know exactly how deep the fraud ran. In the back of the filing cabinet, under a stack of old utility bills, I found the folder. My heart was pounding. I pulled out the original title, dated 2 years ago. Owner, Chloe Sanders. Clean, simple mine. But then I saw the current registration paperwork, dated 6 months ago. Arthur had insisted he needed the car for a routine inspection and new tag registration. He'd thrust a stack of forms at me one morning when I was already running late for a 7 a.m. shift, murmuring, "Just sign these registration renewals, Chloe." My breath hitched. The new registration listed owners, Arthur Sanders or Chloe Sanders. Under my signature line, there was a scrawl that bore only a faint, crude resemblance to my actual signature. It was a forgery, a clumsy criminal forgery. The shock wasn't that they were thieves. I already knew that. The shock was the premeditation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision to sell the car for Liam's tuition. Arthur had been planning this for months, setting up the paperwork to ensure he had legal cover, waiting for the perfect moment, my birthday, when I'd be distracted and compliant to strike. I methodically photographed every inch of the document, the original title, the forged registration, and the difference between my signature on my passport and the scrawl on the new document. This was no longer a family squabble. This was a criminal case, and I had the evidence. Deeper in the drawer, I found what I had insisted on keeping throughout the years, despite Arthur's complaints: the rent receipts. Handwritten on scratch paper, sometimes on the back of an envelope, with Arthur's hurried signature and the date, acknowledging receipt of $625 rental payment. I had insisted on these, telling Arthur I needed them for future tax purposes, a fiction he bought. Now, those flimsy slips of paper, nearly 72 of them, were the foundation of my case. $625 a month since I was 18. As I compiled the documents, my fingers brushed against a small, velvet box in the corner of the drawer. Inside were a pair of simple gold earrings that had belonged to my grandmother Edith. Edith was the only person in the family who had ever truly seen me. "Always know your worth, Chloe," she told me once, right before she passed away. "Don't let anyone define it for you." I had managed to keep these hidden when Elaine claimed the pearl necklace and other jewelry. Now, holding them, I understood. Edith hadn't been talking about my salary or my status. She was talking about my boundaries. I carefully packed the earrings. I had everything I needed to not just leave, but to fight back. The only thing left to do was calculate the total cost of my freedom. The clock ticked past midnight. Downstairs, the house was finally silent, a fragile, tense silence that preceded a storm. I pulled my laptop onto my desk and began constructing the most important document of my life, the financial accounting of the Sanders family. I opened a spreadsheet, giving it a clinical, cold title: Claim for Restitution. Chloe Sanders versus Arthur and Elaine Sanders. This was not an emotional letter. It was a ledger of debt, an invoice for 8 years of exploitation. I began entering the data, categorizing each theft and contribution. Section A, Rent and Utilities, 18 to 24 years old. Date started, August 2018, age 18. Monthly rent payment, $625. Total months paid, 72 months until the present day. Subtotal, $45,000. Section B, Direct Cash Confiscation. Cullen College Scholarship, 2019, $1,800. Graduation money / deck repair, 2021, $1,000. Christmas gift from Aunt Margaret, 2023, $400. Student loan refund check redirected for bills, $5,000. Subtotal, $8,200. Section C, Property Theft, 2025. Estimated fair market value of 2018 Honda Civic. Based on KBB, $14,500. Subtotal, $14,500. I scrolled to the bottom line, where the formula calculated the sum of A, B, and C. The final number glowed on the screen, $67,700. I conservatively estimated the total documented recoverable loss at over $49,000. The final number I settled on for the settlement demand was just under $55,000, a number that was huge, but perhaps digestible enough for Arthur's lawyer to take seriously. Next, I opened a new document and began to draft the formal letter. This was the truly crucial part. It couldn't be accusatory. It had to be professional, legal, and terrifying. To the attention of Arthur and Elaine Sanders. This letter serves as a formal notice regarding the termination of my residency at your address and the immediate demand for the return of assets and compensation for documented financial exploitation and fraud. The recent action of selling my personal vehicle, a 2018 Honda Civic, VIN XXXXX, and the forgery of my signature on the title transfer constitute criminal fraud under Texas state law. Furthermore, the documented history of rent payments, $625 monthly for 72 months, and the confiscation of personal funds, totaling over $49,000, establishes a clear pattern of financial abuse and violation of tenant rights. I then cited relevant Texas statutes regarding property rights and forgery. I attached a note: failure to contact my legal counsel within 48 hours to initiate settlement negotiations will result in the immediate filing of criminal and civil charges, with all documentation provided to local authorities and the Internal Revenue Service. The entire document package, including the spreadsheet, the rent receipts, the bank statements, and the photographs of the forged title, spanned 27 pages. I printed 3 copies, one for me, one for my lawyer, and one for the Sanders family, to be delivered with maximum impact. It was 3 a.m. The house was utterly silent, blanketed in the heavy, dreamless sleep of people exhausted by their own drama. Arthur's distant, predictable snoring was the only sound cutting through the stillness. I changed into my darkest pair of jeans and a nondescript navy hoodie. My 2 small suitcases and backpack sat ready by the door. Everything I truly needed, documents, essentials, and my grandmother's earrings, was packed. My bookshelves, my childhood trophies, my desk, they could all stay. They were just objects tethered to a life I was leaving behind. I picked up the 3 copies of the 27-page document package. The 2 copies meant for the outside world went into my backpack. The 3rd copy, the one meant for Arthur and Elaine, was the weapon. I carried my bags downstairs, moving with the practiced stealth of a night shift nurse checking on a volatile patient. Each step on the creaky staircase was calculated, leveraging years of learning exactly which boards groaned and which remained silent. In the kitchen, the remnants of the untouched pot roast dinner sat under cling film. The good china and the heirloom silver still rested on the dining table, awaiting the dramatic, tearful reconciliation that would never come. I walked to the kitchen counter, the neutral ground where bills were usually paid, where school notes were left, where family life intersected with commerce. I placed the document package right there, next to the coffee maker, ensuring it would be the first thing Arthur saw when he came down for his 5 a.m. coffee ritual. I labeled the package in large black Sharpie, Family Financial Accounting. Do not ignore. It was not hidden, but it wasn't ostentatious either. It was unavoidable. Next, I pulled out my phone one last time. I sent the digital copies of the full document package to Victoria Shaw, the lawyer I'd researched, along with a brief, professional email requesting an appointment later that day. I received an automatic, reassuring response. Your message has been received. Our office will contact you during business hours. My phone instantly blew up with texts from Arthur and Elaine, sent after I had left the dinner table. Messages of accusation, pleading, and thinly veiled threats, all sent through the closed door I hadn't heard. They followed the usual, predictable pattern. You're being ridiculous. Come apologize. Please don't upset your father more. And the final, infuriating one from Liam. Way to ruin my college plan, sis. Selfish much. No recognition of wrongdoing. No acknowledgement of stolen property. Just expectations of continued compliance. I typed one single text to Elaine, the one she would wake up to. I am safe. Do not contact me. Refer all inquiries to the documents left on the kitchen counter. Then I silenced all notifications from every family member. I walked through the garage and stepped out the back door. The empty space in the driveway where my reliable Honda should have been felt like the final, physical representation of everything they had taken. I allowed myself one deep breath of loss, then walked to the street corner, turning my back on the house that had always been a cage disguised as a home. My Uber arrived, a kind, middle-aged woman named Denise. She took one look at my scrubs, my exhausted face, and my 2 large suitcases and mercifully asked no questions. "Long night," Denise asked as we pulled away from the curb. "Long life," I replied, the corners of my mouth finally lifting into a tiny, genuine smile. But it just got a whole lot better. I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee, not pot roast. Sunlight was streaming through the windows of Skylar's guest room in Frisco. For a moment, I was disoriented, reaching for my hospital bag, expecting to be late for shift change. Then the memories rushed back. The confrontation, the document, the escape. Skylar was at her kitchen counter, calmly scrolling through her iPad. She smiled warmly. "Morning, warrior. How you feeling?" "Like I should have done this years ago," I answered truthfully. "Your phone has been going nuclear for the last 2 hours," she said, nodding toward my backpack. I heard it vibrating from across the room. "I figured you'd want to deal with that on a full stomach." I pulled out the silence phone, bracing myself. It was worse than I thought. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, and numerous voicemails. The family had definitely found the 27-page document. The messages were a predictable but shocking timeline of meltdown. Arthur's initial fury, Elaine's tearful manipulations, and then the shift when they realized the gravity of the paperwork. But the most interesting texts were from Aunt Margaret, my father's older sister, who lived across town. Margaret had always been quietly supportive, though powerless against Arthur. "Margaret, 7:15 a.m. What did you leave behind? Arthur is apoplectic. He says you're lying." "Margaret, 7:45 a.m. Chloe. Did you really document years of this?" I had no idea. They are in complete panic mode. "Your father is calling everyone." I sipped the coffee Skylar handed me. The digital deluge was confirmation. The bomb had exploded. Then a new notification flashed, freezing me mid-sip. It was an automated message from my bank. "Fraud alert. Multiple failed login attempts to online banking detected from an unrecognized device. Access temporarily suspended." My blood boiled, but it was a cold, useful rage. Arthur, in his blind panic to cover Liam's tuition, hadn't even bothered to wait. He was trying to bypass my new passwords and drain the money he assumed was still sitting there. This wasn't just old news. This was current, active fraud. This one action, more than any historical document, legitimized my position. Arthur wasn't seeking reconciliation. He was seeking resources. I scrolled through Elaine's latest texts, which had now devolved into outright emotional blackmail. "How could you do this? Your father might lose his job if this gets out. Please come home. We can discuss this reasonably." I ignored them all. I responded only to Margaret, Arthur's own sister. "Chloe, I am safe. Consulting with legal counsel Victoria Shaw at 11 a.m. I have documentation confirming all claims. We will contact you when I am ready." Then I did the final, necessary act to control the narrative. I created a single group text, sending it to Arthur, Elaine, Liam, Aunt Margaret, Uncle Robert, and 3 other major family players. For years, I have experienced systematic financial exploitation and abuse from Arthur and Elaine Sanders. Yesterday, they sold my personal property, my car, without consent and fraudulently signed legal documents. I have left comprehensive documentation of all financial abuse with my legal counsel. I am safe, but will not return to that house. Please respect my privacy during this time. I hit send, took a deep breath, and turned my phone completely off. Skylar stared at me, her eyes wide. You just sent that to everyone. I just bought my freedom, Skylar, I said, picking up my keys. And I made sure they can't control the fallout. I need you to drive me to my lawyer's office. The family system was mobilizing to restore balance, but their efforts were directed at the wrong target. I wasn't the prodigal daughter they could guilt back into line. I was a plaintiff, and my first stop was the lawyer's office to launch my counterattack. The war had officially begun. The meeting with Victoria Shaw, the lawyer, took place in her sleek, downtown Dallas office. Victoria was sharp, practical, and specialized in family financial litigation, the perfect blend of empathy and ruthlessness I needed. I placed my heavily documented binder on her polished desk. It felt like dropping a small, heavy bomb. Victoria didn't rush. She reviewed the spreadsheet, noting the $49,000 calculation, but her eyes lingered longest on the photos of the car title registration. She was all business. Chloe, this is a strong case, she confirmed, pushing her reading glasses up her nose. The rent payments established the pattern of control and exploitation, which is vital in a civil claim. But the car sale, that's your clear win. Forging signatures on title transfers is felony fraud in this state, plain and simple. I felt a surge of cold satisfaction. So, Arthur isn't just lying to his family, he broke the law. He did, Victoria nodded, and that gives us immense leverage. Most cases like this settle quickly once the exploitative party realizes the imminent threat of exposure, especially criminal exposure. Nobody wants a family financial abuse case splashed across the probate court or, worse, involving the district attorney's office. We spent 90 minutes finalizing the plan. First, a formal demand letter would be sent immediately via certified mail and courier to Arthur's business address, demanding the full return of the car sale proceeds and a portion of the documented financial exploitation, totaling $55,000 with a 10-day deadline. Second, if Arthur failed to respond, we would prepare documentation for the Collin County Police Department regarding the fraudulent title transfer. The threat of criminal charges was the ultimate motivator. Third, the preparation for a civil suit. Victoria assured me that Arthur, a man obsessed with reputation and hierarchy, would crumble the moment he realized his neighbors and business associates could read about his financial crimes in public records. As I was leaving the office, Brenda texted me a confirmation. The manager at Willow Creek has approved your application, Chloe. 1 bedroom, 3rd floor, safe neighborhood. It's $1,850 per month, and she'll accept first month plus deposit. Move-in date today. It was a miracle. The financial settlement hadn't even been secured yet, but my friend's network had already delivered my physical freedom. I signed the lease via DocuSign in Victoria's waiting room. The available unit wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, secure, and entirely unequivocally mine. By late afternoon, I was the proud leaseholder of apartment 307. I was legally represented and physically free. Only then did I turn my phone back on, bracing for the inevitable. The onslaught was biblical. 112 missed calls, 76 voicemails, and over 200 text messages. Amidst the chaos, a lengthy text from Liam broke through the noise. This time the tone was different. No entitlement, just confusion and dawning horror. Liam, Chloe, I had no idea about any of this. Dad always said you were happy to help with family expenses. I never knew they were taking your car payments, graduation money, or any of that stuff in your documents. They're saying you're lying, but Mom can't stop crying and Dad keeps changing his story about the car sale. What's real here? I'm sorry if I've been part of hurting you. The golden child's cracks were finally showing. Liam's text was a genuine shock. It was the first hint of humanity, the first crack in the facade I'd seen from my immediate family in years. I didn't reply immediately. I needed to let the dust settle, and more importantly, I needed to see what Arthur's next move would be. The texts from Aunt Margaret grew increasingly frantic throughout the day. She was acting as the family conduit, reporting the emotional damage in real time. Margaret, 5:30 p.m. Arthur has been on the phone with 3 different lawyers today. None will take his case after seeing the documents. He can't deny the paperwork. Margaret, 7 p.m. major development. Arthur tried to list the Honda as stolen with the Collin County Police this afternoon. The officer asked for the title. When Arthur showed him the altered document, the officer recognized the forgery immediately. Arthur is now facing potential charges. It's a mess, Chloe. The news was a jolt of pure validation. Arthur's attempt to regain control had backfired spectacularly, turning a civil matter into a criminal liability. I finally called Aunt Margaret from my new, empty apartment, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "Chloe, are you safe?" she immediately asked, her voice strained. "I'm fine, Margaret. New apartment, new beginning. Just moved in. Your documents, the level of detail. None of us knew things were this bad. Arthur has always been controlling, but this is a different animal." She paused, lowering her voice. "He's telling everyone you've had a nervous breakdown, that you're making things up for attention." "Bank records don't lie, Margaret," I said calmly. "I know. Listen, what about Liam's tuition?" I asked, curious about the catalyst. "He's applying for student loans now. Arthur is furious. Says his credit will be affected. Elaine is devastated that Liam might have to delay enrollment. He'll survive. Plenty of students start a semester late if necessary," I countered. "This is about him learning to stand on his own feet. And Arthur, the police incident." "That wasn't my intention, Margaret, but actions have consequences, especially when those actions involve felony fraud." Margaret's voice softened. "Your grandmother, Edith, would be so proud of you. She always worried about Arthur's control over money. She saw it happening." After hanging up, I read Liam's text again. I typed a brief, professional reply, cutting straight to the core issue. "Chloe, I appreciate your text, Liam. The car was the last straw. The tuition demand was just confirmation of how they view me. An ATM, not a daughter. You need to focus on getting your own finances straight and understanding the real cost of your parents' support." The golden child was finally being forced to look at his reality. The family narrative was unraveling. The confrontation, the documentation, and the threat of criminal charges had worked exactly as Victoria Shaw predicted. Less than a week after the demand letter was delivered, Arthur's attorney called Victoria's office. They wanted to settle. "They are motivated to resolve this quietly and immediately," Victoria informed me. "Arthur is deeply concerned about the fraud charges involving the car. He is willing to return the full market value of the Honda, plus additional compensation for the documented financial abuse you outlined." We negotiated over the next 48 hours. Arthur's lawyer tried to argue down the rent portion, citing my free utilities and room and board. Victoria held firm. The final settlement was an agreement to pay me $42,000, not the full $49,000 plus I had calculated, but a significant lump sum that secured my freedom without the need for a protracted, emotionally exhausting civil trial. Arthur would transfer the money immediately, and I would sign a waiver agreeing not to pursue criminal charges related to the car title. It was a cold, clean transaction. Business concluded. Family ties severed with the same clinical precision they had used to extract my resources for years. The certified check arrived 2 days later. $42,000. It felt less like a payout and more like a ransom for my soul. I allocated the money methodically. First, I put $5,000 into a high-yield emergency savings fund. Second, I paid off a large chunk of my student loans. Third, I bought a reliable used car, a Toyota RAV for this time, a different model when I researched and purchased entirely on my own terms. Liam, having been thoroughly rattled by the family crisis, had also made a surprising choice. Liam, hey, Chloe. Just wanted to tell you I pulled my Texas A&M Commerce application. I enrolled in Collin College instead, doing prerequisites and getting my associate's degree first. Actually saving money this way, and I'm going to take night classes while working a part-time job. Makes more financial sense. His financial awakening was the unexpected silver lining. I maintained strict, polite boundaries with Elaine, who attempted reconciliation through proxies. She misses you, they reported. The house feels empty without you. My reply was always the same. I'm well and I'm building a new life. I am not ready for contact yet. Arthur maintained absolute silence after the settlement, his pride wounded more than his heart. The weight of his disapproval, once crushing, now felt like a gentle, distant breeze. 6 months passed in quiet, relentless progress. My new apartment in Plano, once a blank canvas, now felt like a sanctuary. I painted the walls a soft blue, choosing the color simply because I liked it. My professional life flourished. I was promoted to the official management track. The lack of constant financial stress allowed me to pursue an additional certification in pediatric critical care. My chosen family grew stronger. Skylar, Brenda, and Veronica became constants. The most significant healing, however, was happening through Margaret and Liam. 3 months after the settlement, Margaret arranged a carefully structured meeting. Just her, Liam, and me at a neutral restaurant. I never saw it, Chloe, Liam admitted over dinner. How differently they treated us. How much they took from you while giving to me. It was so normal I never questioned it. That's how family systems work, I explained gently. The golden child doesn't see the scapegoat's burden because they're not meant to see it. Just as I thought I had closed the book on the Sanders saga, 2 weeks later, I received a cold, impersonal letter from Arthur. It wasn't an apology. It was a notification. We are selling the house. Downsizing. If you want any remaining belongings, arrange pickup by month's end. They were running away. They couldn't stand the social consequence. Liam helped me retrieve my remaining possessions. My parents were conveniently absent during our scheduled visit. The room I had occupied for 24 years was already partially converted to storage, my existence already being erased. They're struggling, Chloe, Liam reported. Dad's pride won't let him admit he was wrong, but the family knows. Their standing has completely changed. As I was about to leave the empty, silent house for the last time, I saw a sealed envelope sitting on the stripped mattress of my old bed. I opened it. Inside was Grandmother Edith's pearl necklace and the matching gold earrings. They were returned without note or explanation. It was a silent, profound act of restitution, a wordless acknowledgement from Elaine of at least one major wrongdoing, perhaps the only one she could ever bring herself to admit. I put the necklace and earrings in my pocket. I hadn't achieved the fairy tale reconciliation, but I had achieved something far more valuable: justice, peace, and the return of my self-worth. I locked the door and walked away, never looking back. Today marks 1 year since that single, devastating birthday text message changed everything. I'm sitting on my small balcony in Plano, sipping coffee and realizing just how far I've traveled. My Toyota RAV4 is safely parked in the resident lot. My apartment is warm, personalized, and reflects a life lived entirely on my own terms. The financial situation, buttressed by the settlement and my continued career advancement, is robust. Most importantly, the constant, low-grade anxiety that defined my life under Arthur and Elaine's roof has vanished, replaced by a quiet, unwavering confidence in my boundaries. The family relationships continue to evolve. Liam visits regularly. We now share a sibling bond forged on mutual respect and shared war stories. He's thriving at Collin College and is saving for Texas A&M Commerce with his own money and loans. Aunt Margaret and her husband include me in every holiday gathering. The extended family maintains connections, free from my parents' toxic narrative control. They're my kin, but they're also my allies. My parents themselves remain distant figures. I process the occasional updates about their downsized home and Arthur's early retirement with compassion, but also detachment, maintaining the boundaries that protect my hard-won peace. I still work at Presbyterian Dallas Medical Center. I was promoted to the official management track last month. I even celebrated my 25th birthday with Skylar and the crew, a dinner party where the theme was no emotional blackmail, only cake. The most valuable lesson from this entire harrowing journey came from Victoria Shaw, my lawyer, during our final meeting after the settlement. She summarized the entire experience with a profound truth. "Family isn't who shares your DNA, Chloe," she said. "Family is who respects your boundaries, celebrates your successes without jealousy, and loves you without conditions or invoices attached." I've built that family now. Friends who became sisters, colleagues who became supporters, a brother reclaimed from toxic dynamics, and extended family members who chose relationship over blind loyalty. Holding grandmother Edith's pearl necklace, I understand the freedom I fought for has blossomed into something far more precious than mere financial independence. It's authentic connection. It's relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation or exploitation. It is the life and the family I deserved all along. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with your own experience, please know that you deserve better. Love doesn't take. Love doesn't exploit. Love doesn't come with a price tag. You have the power to break the cycle. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no more and walk toward the life you deserve. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on yours.